Hello, my name is Emma Turnage, and I'm going to be talking about obesity prevalence in vegetarian and vegan children. The objectives are first to define childhood overweight and obesity, and then I'm going to discuss obesity prevalence in non-vegetarian children, and then move into the prevalence in vegetarian children. Childhood weight status is measured by percentile in the BMI for age growth charts. The CDC defines childhood obesity as BMI at or above the 95th percentile of the growth chart, and overweight is the BMI between the 85th and the 95th percentile. In America, 14.7 million children between the ages of 2 and 19 are obese. That totals to 19.7% of children who are obese. Obesity prevalence can vary by age, race, and sex. So, for example, children who are aged 2 to 5 have the lowest obesity prevalence at 12.5%, while adolescents aged 12 to 19 have a much greater rate at 22.2%. As for race, Hispanic children have the highest prevalence at 26.2%, and Asian children have the lowest at 9%. This was a study from Ireland that examined the changes in obesity prevalence between 2002 and 2014 in children between the ages of 4 and 13. They found that in 2014, 1 in 5 boys and more than a quarter of girls were overweight or obese. They also found that there was a decrease in the prevalence of overweight and obesity from 26% in 2002 to 24% in 2014. They found that obesity prevalence decreased from 6% to 5% over this time, and overweight decreased from 19 to 18%. I'm now going to move on to discussing how overweight and obesity prevalence in vegetarian and vegan children compares to non-vegetarian children. So this first study had 8,907 children, with 248 of them vegetarian and 25 vegan. The study compared BMI Z-scores between non-vegetarian and vegetarian children. The BMI Z-scores are just adjusted for the child's age and sex. They found that there were no significant differences between BMI Z-scores for children. There are, however, slight differences, which you can see on the bottom here. There is a slightly higher percentage of overweight in non-vegetarian children compared to vegetarian children. So it's 13.9% overweight in non-vegetarian and 10.8% in vegetarian. Obesity is also slightly higher at 4.2% in non-vegetarians and 3.3% of vegetarians. They did find that vegetarian children were significantly higher risk of being underweight at 6.2% of vegetarian children that are underweight compared to 3.3% of non-vegetarian children. The next study comes from Rewa City, India, which had a total of 744 participants between the ages of 10 and 19. 53% of those participants were vegetarian. The authors found that 23.9% of children eating a non-vegetarian or mixed diet were overweight or obese, compared to 20.2% of vegetarian children who were overweight or obese. The authors also found that those who ate more non-vegetarian food were more likely to be obese than those who ate more vegetarian foods. Another finding from the study was that more than a third of the participants did not eat fruits and vegetables every day. This low intake of fruits and vegetables had a significant association with overweight and obesity in this study. So there are a few reasons we may see the differences between vegetarian and non-vegetarian children obesity prevalence. Firstly, the avoidance of methionine, saturated fatty acids, and high calorie density in some meats in vegetarian diets. Methionine is associated with increased BMI and body fat percentage independent of the total protein intake. In a vegetarian diet, you're getting foods higher in polyunsaturated fat and lower in saturated fat, which can increase the resting metabolic rate. Dairy consumption is another factor. The consumption of dairy by children between the ages of 12 and 14 months has been shown to lead to an increased BMI and body fat percentage, by the time the child is 7 years old. Fiber in plant foods produce a hypocholesterolemic effect, which lowers cholesterol levels. A high fiber intake also produces greater satiety and reduced energy intake between meals. We also have to factor in non-dietary lifestyle factors, such as physical activity and smoking, which can affect BMI. So in conclusion, vegan and vegetarian children have lower obesity rates, but it's also important to note that they may be at an increased risk of being underweight.